Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lunch with Lisa. It is a pleasure to be here, and happy Monday. I am thrilled to see all of you. There's nobody watching, but hey, I know that will change soon. So today I am going to talk about what I feel is one of the most important issues of all. This, I would say, is the number one thing that is blocking most women. And I think it may be blocking some of you. And it's really an important issue. This is the number one reason that women give me for why they're still single. So when I ask most women why they're single, they will say to me, it's because I haven't met the right guy. I haven't met the right guy. How many of you feel that way? Like if I could just meet the right guy, all of this would be over and I would get married, I would have my babies, or maybe I'd get remarried, but I'd settle down and have my happily ever after. Um, this is a very, very big misconception. So what we need to be asking ourselves is not just, you know, using that as an excuse, hey, I'm still single because I haven't met the right guy. The real truth is you need to start to ask yourself, why haven't I met the right guy? What is going on that a fabulous woman like me, who has so much to offer, who has so much going on, hasn't brought the right man into her life? We look around and we see other women. So JoAnn says she wasn't available. That's a big part of it, JoAnn. That's a big piece of it. So what I'm seeing here with your comment is that you looked at yourself and you were asking yourself, why hasn't this happened? What's going on with me that you looked at yourself as the common denominator in your relationship history, and you self-reflected and realized that you weren't emotionally available. So the truth is, many wonderful men may have contacted you, reached out to you online or out in your life, and you were blocking it. You were not ready to open up to them. And so even though it may have seemed that you weren't meeting the right guy, the truth was that you were closed off. Your heart wasn't open, and emotionally, you were not getting emotionally naked. You were not opening up to men. And so they couldn't make a connection with you. And JoAnn says, yes, that's exactly right. So this idea that the reason I'm still single is that I haven't met the right guy, we really need to switch that to the reason I haven't met the right guy is because I'm not emotionally available and open, or I'm not dating, I'm not putting myself out there, or I'm pushing good men away, or I'm going for the wrong men. The most important part about that question is that we have to take responsibility at our end for what we're doing or not doing, or this isn't going to change. We keep blaming the powers that be, the online dating apps, circumstances outside of our control. But I think for every one of you who is still searching for love right now, my guess would be that deep inside, you know that you're doing something or not doing something to create this situation. And that the only way this is going to change is if you change, if you're willing to look at yourself and start to do the work on yourself so that you can meet the right guy. I had a wonderful client, I think it was now 2 years ago. She's in a terrific relationship, and she did the first month of my 12-week emotionally naked dating coaching program. And then she got her new pictures and she got her new profile and she went back online and she wrote to me and she said, Lisa, I am getting contacted by many of the same men who contacted me in the past. But now now that I've done the first month of your course, I'm looking at them with fresh eyes. And I realized that it was me. There are some really good men here, but now that I understand what to really look for in a partner and what I need to do to open my heart to a wonderful man, I'm actually going to I'm going to pick 3 of these guys and I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to open up my heart and I'm going to give a few of these guys that I rejected before. I'm going to give them a chance and just see where it goes. And what happened was, she wound up being with one of those 3 guys. And these were all men who had reached out to her previously and contacted her online, and she had rejected them for one reason or another. So the truth is that many of you are trying to do this work on your own. You don't have a coach or somebody to give you an outside perspective. And that's another big piece of the problem, or a big piece of this puzzle, is that we have blind spots that we cannot see. We have blind spots we cannot see. What happens is many of you are reading books, you're going to therapy, you're doing all kinds of work on yourselves. But you are not working with a qualified expert who can actually observe what you're doing and show you how to do it differently. So when women work with me in my END program, END stands for emotionally naked dating, because I feel that the ability to get emotionally naked is really the secret to lasting love. That's a whole other conversation, but that is the foundation. So when women do my 12-week course, I'm there. My husband is there. They have a coach that is there. So they have 6 sets of well-trained eyes and ears watching and observing their behavior and pointing out what they're doing and how they can do it differently, right? This is so important because many of you are trying to self-diagnose. You're reading books, you're watching YouTube videos, you're even watching things like this, like my podcasts and my Facebook Lives, and you get a little bit of information. You may get a little jewel, a little gem from this talk, right? And then you think, okay, now I know what to do. I need to be more feminine, or I need to be a better listener, or I need to be more in my heart. And you take that one piece of information and you go out and you think, okay, now I think I have the answer. And that may be something that you could do better or something that you're doing wrong, but it's just one piece of what you might be able to change so that you can bring this man into your life. It may just be one of the many things that you need to look at. And it may not even be the most important piece of the puzzle that you're missing. So what happens, the big mistake that many of us make, and I know I did this too, I used to go out, I would get little pieces of this and then I think, okay, I'm going to practice this. And maybe that's the answer, or maybe I'll be a better listener, or maybe I'll ask better questions, or maybe I won't ask so many questions, or I'm just going to be myself. And maybe that will change it. But here's the big problem with all of that. There are many pieces to this puzzle that we need to know to really get it right. So working with qualified professionals who can help you see all of the different things that you may or may not know that you're missing, that's where the magic happens, so that you can meet the right man. When he sits down in front of you on a date, you will be able to recognize this man and you will be able to open your heart because you'll have all of the pieces of the puzzle. You'll be able to tell if this man is emotionally available. Is he the kind of man who is, ready for what you're looking for? Is he able to open his heart and get emotionally naked? And if you get vulnerable with him, does he start to become vulnerable with you? So, all of these things, that's just one piece of it. You've got to be able to know, is this man emotionally available? Is he worth my time and trouble? Then, thank you, Tyra. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that things are still going strong with the two of you. That makes me so happy. And yes, you did meet him during the END course, which was remarkable, right? Um, so, what happens is first, you have to understand your own inner dialogue, right? You have to start to understand how you're self sabotaging, how you're beating yourself up, how you're telling yourself, oh, you've been messing this up for years. Maybe it's not going to happen. The online dating apps suck. This isn't ever going to work. Whatever that voice inside of you is saying to you, this is a huge thing. You've got to start to have a positive, loving inner dialogue. And I'm not talking about the positive, loving inner dialogue that I hear from a lot of women. In fact, I should do a whole podcast just on toxic positivity because it is really a big deal these days. And a lot of women, I can't even tell you how many women I talk to on calls who have what is called toxic positivity. So, anybody know what that is? Is anybody familiar with the term toxic positivity? Do you all know what that is? Because this is a huge barrier to finding true love. Anybody know what toxic positivity is? I'd love to hear from some of you, some of my listeners. If you've ever heard the term toxic positivity, and if you know what it is. So JoAnn says no. Does anybody know what toxic positivity is? It is a huge deal today. So toxic positivity is when we put on this sort of false positive, I'm going to learn from everything and I'm on a personal growth path and whatever. And we literally, it's also known as spiritual bypass. So, yes, exactly, JoAnn. JoAnn for the money. There's also something called spiritual bypass, and JoAnn is right. It is being inauthentically positive on top of other feelings. So this is when I do calls with women. In fact, I just got off of a call with a woman, and breaking through her toxic positivity was almost impossible. I mean, I had out a hammer and a chisel, and I couldn't get her to be real with me about what was really going on with her regarding her love life. So, JoAnn, sorry about that. Yes, I can repeat what I said. So, we also call toxic positivity spiritual bypass. And this is when we put this glossy spin, this veneer, this positive spin on everything. And we refuse to look realistically and honestly at the parts of our lives that aren't working and be honest about them. So I have a woman who I just got off the phone with, and I couldn't even get through this wall of positivity to get to the truth of what was really going on in her love life. Every single time I asked her a question, she would put a positive spin on it. And she would just tell me, oh, I'm learning, I'm growing, I want to, and every experience is teaching me something. And, I believe he's out there. And, the truth is she was on that call with me. She signed up to do a one-on-one call with me to see how I could help her because things weren't good. She was crying herself to sleep at night. She was going through one awful relationship after another. Every time she'd get involved with a guy she really liked, he would turn around and leave her. And she was feeling rejected and disillusioned, but she wouldn't admit to these feelings. And so that's what's called toxic positivity, when you cannot talk realistically about what's going on in your life. And that doesn't mean you have to dwell on something and go down a negative spiral and feel like a loser. It means to be able to look at your life honestly and be able to say to yourself, wow, there's something huge at stake here that I want more than anything in the world. And I'm failing at this. And it isn't fun. And I just want a solution. I need help, right? I need help because I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. And it feels like Groundhog Day. And it's causing me stress. It's depressing. And so it's the willingness to be able to admit that something isn't working. It doesn't mean, the rest of your life isn't great. It doesn't mean that you're not kicking ass at your job. It just means that you're able to look honestly at your life and say, yeah, I have some work to do here and I really need some help because this part of my life is causing me some distress and I want to get this solved. A lot of women today use all of their spiritual mumbo jumbo and their, I'm going to be positive and I'm going to, the power of positive thinking. And it's turned into what we call spiritual bypass or toxic positivity. If you cannot admit to yourself that you really are failing at love, if you can't admit that your time is going by and you're still alone, your girlfriends are getting married, maybe they have babies, maybe, you've been divorced once or twice already, and you don't want to have a third failed marriage, you've got to start to look at this stuff and take ownership of the fact that it's not just that you haven't met the right man. There are wonderful, wonderful men out there, and my clients meet them every single day. They meet wonderful men online, on the dating apps. They meet them offline. They meet them all around, but they open up their energy. They know how to connect with men. They know how to get emotionally naked. They start to learn what men want and need from them. One other huge mistake that I see so many women making, myself included, I had a big old long list of what I knew I wanted in a partner. How many of you have an equal list for what a man needs from you as a partner? How many of you have actually sat down and written out a list of all the things that a man would be coming to you for? A really great guy. What would a man want from you? Because it's not enough that you give a man what you think he needs. And it's not that every man is different. Sure, some men want a woman who's sporty and some men want a woman who's, more of a homebody or whatever. Different people, different men may want certain things from a woman, but how many of you actually know? Actually know? How many of you could sit down and really make a detailed list of all the things a great guy would be looking for from a real woman in a relationship? What would be those qualities that would make him want to go home and take his profile down and really pursue you? Not just because you're hot, not because you just he thinks you're pretty, but because he can feel that you're the kind of woman who knows how to satisfy his needs, because that list is equally as important as the list of things that you want, maybe even more important. Because if you can't give a man what he needs, a lot of these really great guys are going to pick up on it. They know what they're looking for, just like we know what we're looking for from a man. We know what we think makes a man masculine and makes us really hot for a guy. Well, men, and it's not just visual, ladies, a lot of us beat ourselves up unnecessarily because we don't look like supermodels, because we have too many curves, whatever it is, right? That we do to ourselves because we think that we're not pretty enough and that that's what men really want. I can tell you, when I worked in Los Angeles and I coached there, I never saw in my life so many stunningly beautiful women who couldn't get a man to marry them. Men, once they got to know them, would run away. A lot of these women were neurotic and insecure and needy. The more beautiful they were, many of them, the more insecure they were. There's a fabulous TED Talk by a supermodel, and she talks about how incredibly insecure supermodels are. It's really worth Googling and finding. If somebody actually Googles that supermodel TED Talk, and posts the link here, that would be amazing. But this is a phenomenal TED Talk because this woman was a major, well-known, one of the top supermodels out there. And she said that she was so deeply insecure. And a lot of it came from the fact that men were attracted to her because she was beautiful, but she wanted a man to love her for who she was on the inside. And that was actually the tragedy of Marilyn Monroe. If anybody knows much about Marilyn Monroe's life, one of her great tragedies, and one of the tragedies with Arthur Miller, her second husband, he was a genius and she was really in love with him. And she felt like he didn't think that she was intelligent enough, and he wound up divorcing her. And it was a heartbreak. Denise says we should not have to create a list of what we want or need from another human being. Be yourself always, and the right person will come into your lives. Never change who you are. We should never expect a man to change who he is to be with us either. Denise, I think that that's a great point, and I do agree with you up to a point. Nobody should have to change to get someone else to love them or to please another person. But yes, we all have changes we can make. There are things that many of us are doing that we are not aware of that are not attractive to men. And that's what I'm talking about. What is attractive behavior? What is unattractive behavior? If you're not attracting the kind and quality of men that you really want, then you need to look at yourself and decide, or you can just keep being you and hoping that somebody shows up and says, oh, wow, isn't she great? But I can tell you that didn't work for me. I was 39 years old. I was turning 40 in Los Angeles, and I was single, and I was being me. I was being myself, but men weren't lining up to date me. And part of that was because I was emotionally unavailable. I didn't know how to open up to a man. I didn't know how to show a man I needed him. I was fairly narcissistic and self-focused. So these things get in our way. So, JoAnn, coaching, you said good points, Lisa, of coaching. It feels like we have to do this or not. JoAnn, the question, there's just overarching questions about what is attractive behavior, right? What do women find attractive in men, and what do men find attractive in women? And if we're not getting the result we want, we have to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, is there something I need to be doing differently? when I started dating this time around, and I really decided to go out and embark on a conscious search for a partner, I realized, I sat back and I said to myself, I really want a real man. I want a man who knows how to be a man, who is chivalrous and knows how to take the lead, and who is generous, and I want who had his life and his career figured out. And then I asked myself, what kind of woman would he be attracted to? And the answer that came back to me was, he's going to want a real woman. He's going to want a woman who understands men. He's going to want a woman who really knows how to mirror a man's masculinity back to him, a woman who's confident with her own sensuality and sexuality, who doesn't, create a lot of drama, who isn't emotionally messy. So I really think that these are things. I mean, my God, I had a terrible marriage. I was with my ex-husband for 13 years. And I came out of that marriage and I said to myself, I can't do this again. I don't have another 13 years to waste. I was I was 34 years old at the time, and I knew my whole life, the best years of my life were passing me by, and I wanted a real partner to share them with me. And the problem was, the kind of men that I was attracted to, they were hitting on other women, but they weren't hitting on me. And so I had to look at myself and the way I was interacting with men. And I had to start to ask myself if who I was being was really, attractive to these men that I wanted to attract. And so I started to really look at myself. I did years of personal growth work before I met my husband. It was 8 years between my two husbands. So Denise is pushing back on me. She's feeling a little, it seems like she's feeling a little resistance to what I'm saying. And that's okay, Denise. So you're saying we should change our identities to attract others. What does that do other than present a false sense of ourselves? Eventually, our true colors will show. So why prolong this? I agree. If it's fake and you're putting on an act, Denise, then yes, your true colors will show, and it's not going to work. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I am talking about maturity. I'm talking about self-actualization and personal growth. I grew up in those years and in the years since I've been with my husband. I grew up. I transformed myself into a confident woman who really understands men and how they think and what they really want and need from a woman in a relationship. And as a result of that, I have one of the best relationships of anybody I've ever known. And I've had it for 19 years. So my first marriage was a disaster because I was an emotional mess. I was immature. I didn't have my life together. And in those 8 years between my two husbands, I worked with coaches and teachers. I did programs. I went to therapy, and I learned how to become a very different kind of woman. But I wasn't putting on an act. This was authentic. This was real. And to be honest with you, I love the woman I've become. I love that person. So JoAnn says, I am concerned about having to be a certain way. I am a strong, attractive, and successful woman. I am confident, but not at all times. And I will get upset. Please speak to that. So JoAnn, it's okay to get upset. It's okay to not be confident all the time. That's not what I'm saying at all. I go through times where I feel where I have moments of real insecurity and where I really need to lean on my husband for support. The difference is I am a strong, attractive, successful woman, but I know how to ask for help. That's the difference. I know I'm not emotionally messy. I don't throw myself around. I know how to go to my husband for support and be vulnerable and, talk to him and ask for love and support. So in the past, I might have gotten upset or angry or acted out or thrown my weight around. But now I can handle my emotions. I have a much higher EQ. The resistance that all of you feel, you're getting this completely wrong. If you were, what do I want to say? If you're playing tennis and you keep, lobbing the ball, you keep, hitting the ball too hard and it's going out of bounds, out of the lines, right? And you have a lousy serve, you're not going to keep doing what you're doing. You're going to change your serve so that you can improve your tennis game. Why wouldn't that apply to dating and relationships and any other part of your life? I mean, to me, that's just ludicrous. If I'm going out on date after date after date and I'm not getting asked out on a second date, I can sit there and say, oh, it's the men. They have a problem with smart, strong, successful women and I intimidate them. I don't think that's true. I look around and I see plenty of strong, smart, successful women who have husbands, who have partners, who have men who are very, very attracted to them. So that's a lie. Just because I'm smart and I'm strong and successful, I may not be vulnerable. I may not know how to open up my heart and make room for a man. And that is something that a lot of very strong, successful women have to learn how to do. You can sit there and say, oh, I'm so strong, I'm intimidating men. Well, if you are strong and you're intimidating men, you need to look at that because that can be changed. And it doesn't mean, for some of you who are sitting there going, what, I'm supposed to dumb myself down and act like I'm, not a strong woman? That's not what I'm saying at all. I couldn't dumb myself down and pretend like I'm not a strong woman. I'm strong. But I know how to let my husband in. I know how to ask him for help. I know how to not pretend like I have it all figured out. When I have a hard day or a bad time or I'm struggling in my career, I go to him. I go to him and I say, wow, I just had a few really bad calls and, I need some TLC, or can I just talk to you and download, and he'll sit and listen to me. But yes, JoAnn, I am talking about becoming a loving, open-hearted woman, a woman who lives in her heart and isn't, and knows how to get emotionally naked. I work with some women who have been in the corporate world for so long. They have been in the corporate world for years, years and years and years. And there's no room in their lives for a man. Men go on dates with them and they feel like they're going on a date with another man, not a woman. She may look like a woman on the outside, but when he talks to her, he might as well be sitting across from a business colleague. She's all business. She's no heart. There's no real emotional connection. There's no playfulness. A lot of these women are there to seal the deal. They've got a list of things they're looking for. They're checking off that list. It's like a transaction. They're not even in the moment. So this is learning how to, for a lot of women, part of what I'm talking about is learning how to get back into our feminine, learning how to talk to men. Men are very, very, very sensitive to the way that they're talked to by women. So a lot of us, we can come across as a mother or a teacher or a nag. Men don't respond very well to that kind of conversation. They want women who know how to speak to them with respect, even if you're angry, even if he let you down or disappointed you. Men will walk away very quickly from women who do not know how to express their needs and wants and desires in a respectful way, even if they've completely botched it, even if the guy has completely messed up. And part of what's really beautiful about this is that a lot of you are sitting there going, God, she's telling me I'm not good enough as who I am and I have to change and there's all this work. No, it's actually quite fun. It's more painful to keep doing what you're doing and going on date after date, telling yourself there's no good men or the dating apps don't work or men are intimidated by your strength. That's a lot of work and it's painful. What I'm talking about is actually wonderful. You have no idea how easy this is, how easy it is, and how much fun it is. That's the thing that most of you are missing. When you really learn how to play with men and have a romantic, playful interaction with men, it is so much fun. It's delightful. And men are going to respond so positively. And the truth is, where right now many of you are struggling and feeling like you can't get this solved, it's actually fun because men are going to start to be, you will have so many more men that are wanting to date you and get to know you. And you'll actually have your choice of some really great men. And you won't be just going on dates hoping that one of those guys is going to turn out to be the one. So this is all fun. It's a blast. Anybody who works with me will tell you that it doesn't even just change their relationship to the men that they're dating and in their romantic lives. It changes their rapport with men throughout their entire lives, their bosses, their colleagues, their fathers, their brothers. It's actually a blast because right now, most of us, as women, many of us do not understand how to really create a connection. And it feels like a mystery. And there's all this BS about just be yourself and the right man will find you. I mean, talk to some of my clients who are in their late 60s and 70s and ask them how that worked for them. I'm just saying. So it's really great, to just work with a qualified professional who can make this fun and exciting and just get this thing solved. Because you can keep telling yourself, that you haven't met the right man. But the truth is, many of you have sat down on dates across from some phenomenal men. You just didn't know how to create a connection with them. And so nothing happened on that date. It just, there was no spark, there was no fire. And they went on and they found other women that they did connect with, women who were in their hearts, who were feminine, who were playful, and who knew how to make a connection. And if you don't think that these men know what they're looking for, think again. In fact, most men will tell you that they know right away. They can tell very quickly. And what they'll do is they will find a woman, this is God's honest truth. They will meet a woman and they can tell if they want to play the long game or the short game with her. And what that means is they may be attracted to you physically, but not mentally and emotionally. So if they don't feel a real connection, they'll just try to get you into bed. And that's the short game. A man who really respects you and really finds, has an emotional connection with you and sees your value and worth, he will want to play the long game and he will pursue you. But they can tell very, very quickly. They can. And women don't want to hear this stuff, but we can tell pretty quickly too if we want to continue to date someone. So yeah, if this isn't working, if you haven't met the right man, there are some real steps you can take in your love life, in your behavior to switch this up and really start to learn about men. And here's something I realized. When I started to date this last time, I sat back and I got very honest with myself. And I said, Lisa, my God, the truth is, you know very little about men, very little. Most of what I knew was all bullshit that I'd heard from bad dating books and from my girlfriends. And my mom, she didn't have a very good opinion of men. And so I had, put together this very superficial idea of who men are. So that's something else I work with my women, in my course. We really start to humanize men. We see them as people and not as other. And, with the women in my course really start to see that the really great men, the ones who are attracted to us, they're just as afraid of us as we are of them. When a man is really into you, he is as afraid of being rejected by you as you're afraid of being rejected by him. It's the truth. And so we all get self-conscious and flustered when we start to get to know somebody. And if there's a real attraction, that gets magnified. It gets magnified on both sides. So the women in my course, they start to learn, as I needed to learn, about men, how they think, who they are, what their fears are, what they go through in life, right? What it's like for a man on a date when he's sitting across from you. I don't know how many women really stop to think that men have to advance. Men are the ones who have to usually advance the sexual agenda. They're the ones who move in for the first kiss. They're the ones who we want them to make sexual advances. But they're also the ones, when they do that, who risk rejection. Think about what that would be like if you had to lean in for the kiss and then get pushed away, or some woman would turn her cheek to you, or what that would feel like to have to time that, to think, is she interested? Is she not? Is this the right moment? Only to have a woman say, whoa, I don't kiss on the first date, or, and push you away. So it's important to start to think about what men are going through. And this was really an eye opener for me. I want you all to take this away. I thought, if I am going to be in a relationship with a man, I have to learn how to love and appreciate men. I have to really learn how to love, appreciate, and understand men, and not just have this very superficial view of who they are. It is as important to me in my relationship that my husband get his needs met as it is that I get my needs met. The other day, my husband and I have been going through a lot lately in my business. And, I just turned 60. So this is a new chapter in my life. And I'm really looking at what I want these next 10 years to be about. And I went and in the middle of the day, I walked into his office and sat down, and we had this amazing talk. And since the pandemic, Benjamin has been working with me in my business, but now he's starting to rebuild his practice. And, his time is precious, and he loves what he does in his work. He loves it. He's incredibly successful at it and very, very passionate about it. We moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico from Los Angeles in the middle of the pandemic. And so he's having to start his practice over again here. In the meantime, he's been helping me. He's been writing online dating profiles for my women. He's been coaching them with me. He comes on all the Q&A calls with me. But here's the truth. Every hour he spends working in my practice is an hour that he can't spend working in his own practice. And so, because I love him and I want to make sure that I'm not taking advantage of him and his time, I went in and I asked him, I said, babe, do you want to step back from doing the Q&A calls? Is this really what you want to be doing right now? Do we need to make some adjustments so that you can get your time back? And, I was concerned for him. It wasn't based on anything he said to me, nothing like that. I just wanted to make sure that this beautiful man who's so generous with me and with his time, I didn't want to make any assumptions that just because he was showing up and he was doing the calls and he seemed okay with it, I wanted to make sure that he's getting what he needs from me. So that kind of love didn't, and that awareness didn't just happen, randomly. It's part of me becoming and really exploring what it means to be a great woman and a great partner to this man that I love and cherish and adore and respect. And so being that kind of woman is something that I worked on. It was a goal of mine to become a superior woman, a fabulous woman, the kind of woman that men look at and say, wow. And not just because of how I look, but because of who I am. I've talked to many, many men, and they have said to me, where do I find a woman who thinks like you do? How can I find a woman who understands men the way you understand men? So, you all can keep believing in all of these cliches that, you're just supposed to show up and be yourself and the right guy will find you and that your prince will come. And, or you can really take a step back and say, hey, what if I do some work on me? What if I become the kind of woman who is attractive to the kind of man I'm really looking for? What would that look like? How do I do that? So that you can stop waiting to meet the right man and you can just start drawing these men to you. Imagine if you could just magnetize those men to you instead of sitting around and thinking that this is something that just happens like a Disney movie. Right? So that's what I have for you all today. You can meet the right man, but you can also do some work on yourself to become the right woman so you can draw him to you faster. And to do that, I suggest that you all watch my presentation. Cynthia says, you're so right about your talk. There's so much more most of us ladies don't know about what men are looking for. Not a mom, just a partner and a wife. And we need to be open and emotionally available. Thank you, Cynthia. Thanks, honey. That's exactly right. Yeah. And look, this is the most important work any of us will ever do on ourselves and in our lives. None of you became good at your careers. You didn't just show up at your job and say, okay, here I am. I'm fabulous. You had to show up and learn how to become good at your field, whatever that was. And it's the same with this. It boggles my mind that people think that it's something that is just supposed to happen like that and that we don't do anything to educate ourselves to make it happen. Look at the divorce rates. Look at the divorce rates. Over 50% of all first marriages fail. 67% of second marriages and 74% of third marriages fail. And if you don't believe me, go Google those statistics. That's crazy. The single most beautiful and important part of our lives, having love, having a loving partner to grow old with, a lover, a playmate, a best friend by your side every morning when you wake up, every night when you fall asleep, somebody to bring a paycheck, to create a retirement with, to buy a home with, maybe to have babies, get dogs, travel the world with. That's what's at stake here. Divorces are insanely expensive. Some people get into relationships where, one partner doesn't work and the other one is paying and, picking up the slack for both people, especially if there aren't children involved. That doesn't work. I talk to so many women who have gotten into marriages where the men had a job and then they lost the job and then they wound up paying for everything. And the men never went back to work. Getting this right is the most important thing you can ever do in your life. And I promise you, it will be the best thing you've ever done for yourself. So please go to my website and watch my presentation. Go to lisashield.com and just watch my free 45-minute presentation, 45 minutes of your life that could change your life forever. All right, everybody, I am going to get going. I wanted to say that please rate and subscribe to my YouTube channel and my podcast, Dating Without Drama. Also, if you have questions, suggestions, or comments about the podcast, the email is in the podcast show notes. You can also email me, and that would be dwdpod@lisashield.com. So dwdpod@lisashield.com. All right. Thank you so much for those of you who keep coming back and listening. But, listening is the beginning. Taking action is where it's at. You all can keep listening and reading books and watching YouTubes, but information is not transformation. If you really want to get this solved, you need a step-by-step roadmap for solving it. That's what I can help you do. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And please come back and see me again. Mwah. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.